Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a 22 streets for you. Here is a little bit something different. I'm running as Windwalker. For this key, I have one guildie, that is Istandinstuf, and the other three are pugs for this group. For this opening pull, I'm looking at getting everything on cooldown, so I open with Swen plus Trinket. Maybe trying to build up some chi, get SEF down as soon as possible. Once that's down, hit Bone Dust Brew, and I'm just pretty much spinning until Fist of Fury comes off cooldown. Then I'm just running that. Rising Sun Kick is really just to make sure that Whirling Dragon Punch is something that can be used, and I'm still in the process of trying to correctly time Touch of Death in order to get full use out of it. This is the main reason why I don't really run Touch of Death builds. For this key, I am running Skyreach, so if you see my tune port over all over the place sometimes, that's typically just because of the Skyreach talent there. My legendaries are Unity and Windwalker's Delight. For this pull, the only CD I have is SEF, so as Bone Dust Brew does come off of cooldown, I opt to not use it since SPF is something that was already used approximately 30 seconds ago, so I'm really just trying to wait and see if I can line up Bone Dust Brew with something else that's coming up later. You'll see SEF is coming off cooldown in 18 seconds, so I think it was worth the wait here. I wasn't too happy with this pull. I was really expecting a triple here and not a double, so, and of course I go into this pull without any CDs, so DPS really takes a while to get ramping here. Fist of Fury's here. I see that SEF and Bone Dust Brew are off CDs, and I do wind up using them, admittedly in an incorrect order. So at this point, primary focus is just spinning, and then Fist of Fury. Just around now, it looks like Statue is coming off cooldown. I'm not sure if I actually wind up using it in this pull. I might have forgotten. Admittedly, it's probably not even worth to use. That might have been what I was thinking, considering that things are mostly dead, and wherever that statue goes, it will be there for 30 seconds. Again, I'm not too happy with this pull here. It's only 3 mobs here, no CDs. It really feels kind of like a waste of time in my opinion. And of course I feel like I make a pretty bad mistake, which is actually put statue on cooldown knowing that there is going to be a double pull immediately after this. And so if I can say that there was a pretty glaring mistake with a cooldown, it was definitely there. Admittedly, I am also being quite sloppy with some interrupts here, just kind of like letting them go off. I know that most of his trash isn't entirely lethal on a non-fortified week, so I feel like I'm kind of letting that kind of get to the best of me here. Not really sure what happened with that Ring of Peace where the mobs seem to have gotten knocked forward and then backward again. It was really weird. Ideally, what I would have liked to have seen probably here is maybe this pack get pulled with the previous one, considering that we opted to do a double in the first place rather than a triple. Zul'Gurmux and an Overseer get taken by themselves. This is a pretty straightforward approach to Zul'Gurmux right here, so there's really nothing too special. Again, we can see Bone Dust Brew come off cooldown here, but I'm opting to not use it in favor of waiting. So right here I do have Swen. I do also have Trinket as well. I do use that. I'm not entirely sure if I wind up using... I do use the statue. Admittedly, it does come a little late. And finally, we have SEF, which is down. But it's looking like I will wind up holding it. I think at this point, I'm just kind of thinking of actually getting the bat. I think at this point, Istandinstuf told me not to, that she didn't have anything for the bat. So I think my intention was mostly on that for about a couple seconds leading up to the bat being released. Anytime Radiant Pulse is coming up with this guy, I like to make sure that I have a CD up and actually use it. Hence why I was actually channeling the shield there. Honestly, I'm not sure why I didn't use Touch of Karma just to get a little extra damage going on in there. I hold CDs here at least for, and okay, there it is. So I use Touch of Karma at least on a second one and go double Touch of Death right here. I did stand in one thing. Luckily that didn't actually spell doom for me. So we start the first boss. I have SEF and Bone Desperu that are off cooldown. Those are the only CDs I have. I don't even bother with my agility pot right now, because I know that it's just not really worth using. Really want to wait for both Trinket and Swen in order to use that, as well as the statue, but I kind of have a feeling that I'm not going to get a whole bunch of use out of the statue. My main concern with the statue here is just the sheer amount of movement that goes on in the fight. Even though the boss does move fairly slow, still I'm kind of worried about the range on that statue. So we do see that Swen gets used as well as Trinket plus Agility Pot, and that's really what allows my DPS to pop off quite a bit. Boss is getting moved again, and which again is a cause for concern of that statue. I'm always kind of cognizant of the range on that, and fairly shortly, boss is going to do an interrogation on Blue, and she already did a couple hunter related things there, so she starts to panic a little bit in here, but fortunately for her, I do have Touch of Death, which I actually do wind up using. I'm typically more than happy to use a Touch of Death on those containers, just in order to break them out just a bit sooner, get some more uptime, another DPS, and kind of pad my own stats on this boss at the very end. Boss does get to another interrogation. I do think we're in a very odd predicament here. I think the two people on the boss with less than 700k health left, it's probably worth it to just stay on the boss at this point. We do opt to swap. By the time we are done swapping, boss is down to roughly around 500k, so I'm not sure what was really the play there. I think maybe like save a couple seconds would have been to just stay on the boss. I'm opting to just skip through most of the walking through the bridge. Nothing really important happens there. The only really thing of note here is just I call for an interrupt actually that I'm going to get on triangle, which I proceed to horribly miss. I start asking Blue about it, and if that wasn't that much of a fail, I take one of the carrion swarms to the face there, which is just being obscured by the two dogs right here. This is definitely not a ideal handling of this pack on my part, but everything does die fairly quickly and we're able to move on. So as the tank jumps down here, you get the Triceratops here, Nathrezim, and then 4 of the cats, and looking to drop SEF, Bone Dust Brew, and just really start AoEing. Things just kind of jump around quite a bit, so I'm not really able to get full uptime on everything on that opener there. like it's too big of a deal. Things are dying fairly quickly, I think with the exception of that one dinosaur there. At this point, I'm starting to get a little annoyed with this tank. They seem to be more on a mission of getting all the Nathrezim possible than just going through the dungeon. And you'll note how it took quite a while for them to just go down there, get the Nathrezim, and it's like we're not even moving forward with the dinosaur. So like we only just started moving forward now. So I just feel like parts of this pull was just a huge waste of time. It may not seem like much, but it just felt to me that when you're on a mission to get all the Nathrezim in the world, you just spend more time getting them. They don't really add much value. So here we're starting the RP, pulling some trash. My hope is that initially all of this is going to go in with the boss. We're not really moving forward though. We still got a couple more seconds before the boss is active, and based on how things are dying, it looks like all this will be dead. I do opt to use a lot of CDs here, mainly because I know that this is a boss coming up next is a 3-phase encounter. I'm not really too concerned with blowing a ton of CDs on the very first mob that comes out, because it's just nothing really spectacular about this guy other than just don't stand in the big blue puddles there. I'm more concerned with doing a lot of damage on the robot. You'll see just kind of like a little micromanagey strategy there, just to use Transcendence on the boss right there and head on out, and then Transcendence transfer right back on. Get some good uptime there. Again, nothing really has come off cooldown yet, and I'm not too concerned about it. I'm mainly just waiting for this guy. A little bit of a scare there. I do pull threat. Tank, it does not have everything. I do use a diffuse magic here. Allows quick easy dispel for the healer, and they can just focus on dispelling someone else. I mean, it's just a bit less healing that has to happen. Finally around this time, got CDs are up again. I completely forget to use my agility potion though, so burst is just not quite going to be there, although the numbers aren't going to be there anyway, just considering that I didn't really have a good opener on this boss anyway. Main concern is just focus on this robot here, make sure this dies. I'm not sure what was going through my mind there. Typically when I see a change of domination go out, I try to target the person, give them Tiger's Lust, that'll easily remove them, but in this case I might have just missed where they were and just decided to DPS it instead. I was a bit annoyed with this positioning of the tank right here. I kind of just would have preferred if this was moved. Boss was moved a bit further away than where it was. Healer is down. But fortunately for this fight, there's just not a whole lot of damage that does go out. Pretty much everything is avoidable at this point other than the explosives, which I do make sure that we do need to get because there is no healer. Chains of Damnation does go out on me, so I opt to use Tiger's Lust. Stay uptime on the boss. Touch of Death. The boss is done. I'm pretty surprised as of late that tanks are becoming more and more comfortable with just pulling this entire room. I feel like prior to the pre-patch, granted, we do have a ton of extra power. Most tanks would just do a 2-pack followed by a 1. There's a couple of things to note about this pull. While normally it is a juicy pull where we get to see some really big AoE numbers, that's not the case for this pull. I only have SEF and Bone Dust Brew down here. Swen and Trinket do come up later, and I do have my agility potion, but I'm intentionally not going to use them, knowing full well that we have the hardest boss of this dungeon in here, and it is a tyrannical week. I do actually wind up dying here, but due to the soulbind, I do get an extra 10 seconds. Fortunately, most stuff is dead anyway, so just run back, and we wind up pulling the prior Peacekeeper that was actually CC'd. And now we're onto this boss, but of course before that, the tank is very clearly on a mission, and of course they just seem to be more concerned with getting Nathrasiums than anything else really. So we'll take this Nathrasium with Postmaster. Everything is up here, including Zwen, trinkets, potions, and we're just pretty much ready to burst as high as we can. I think I do pop off at 50k as my absolute max here with everything, and this burst is actually pretty decent burst. We get the boss like almost down to like 60% health before we even have to deal with the first set of suitcases here. Running into some issues, just picking up like one of them actually. People are just kind of picking them up just before me, and a couple times Skyreach nearly kills me by launching me right into the boss as they're still standing over the puddles. Position here is sort of okay, but you can definitely see the boss is still inside of the puddle, and Skyreach actually almost kills me right there. Under any other situation, like twice already, I get ported to the boss, and the boss is standing in the puddles there, so it's not exactly ideal positioning. Do get one more set of unstable goods. This will be the last one we actually deal with. Once again, I'm just kind of struggling to pick up one of the crates here. From here, we just stay on the boss. Trying to be fairly patient. I do use Zwen again. I think that is kind of a waste, but it's not actually going to get used again until later, so be patient. Touch of Death, and we can move on. Here we are at the 4th boss now, and of course before that we need to get yet another Nathrasium. We actually got 2 Nathrasiums in between both Postmaster and when we were doing the whole RP maze leading up to this room. What I like to do here is just get everything on cooldown and just basically just do nothing but pad meters here. I don't really consider this like a boss, to be honest. It's just kind of glorified trash. We do miss a menacing shout there. To be fair, I definitely could have gotten it, just was too busy pew-pewing to really care. I want to say this might actually be my least favorite boss. just doesn't feel like it's a fairly good use of time. And if you could actually take this with just more trash in the meantime, I feel like that would have been a little bit more engaging. But since the expansion's like pretty much over, I think it's neither here nor there. If that was a fortified week, I am definitely dead on that, so need to be much better with the interrupts. I did mention I was being very sloppy earlier, and as you can tell, I was not kidding. So there's one guy going out there, pretty much just give him a ring of peace, but this is just one of those situations where I'm very spoiled with Death Knights, so it's just kind of chilling out there. Definitely not an ideal way of handling the patron there. And I'm more than certain our healer is not too happy with us. Pretty pleased. Most stuff is just off CP again, so I just opt to use it, knowing that we'll have the duration of this boss as well as some walk-in RP to be able to get everything back for in time for the last boss. And this guy just dies fairly quickly again. I just don't really consider this guy to be a boss, really. It's more just kind of glorified trash with the lieutenant at the end. And here we are at the final boss. I opt to use pretty much everything off the rip. The one exception seems to be my pot, and that seems to be the one thing that I am being very forgetful of, truthfully. Being healer mostly this entire season as well as last season, and just very spoiled and not having to worry about using potions, and so it's just kind of a habit I'm gonna need to get into. We do get a pretty lucky divide there. Tank is very nice to delay it as long as possible before we have to go in. We get a double technique there. We know to let it kind of go down as far as we can, avoid some mechanics. You'll note we're not exactly in ideal positioning right here. Once the boss does another divide, which will be horizontal, it will split this group right here, but I think we actually might get a Shuri that goes out before then, so we have to reposition anyway. We're very lucky that we have triangle right here, so this boss was actually very good to us with the teleport mechanic there. So we get our divide here. He's actually going to do another double technique, which again we only have to go through this once. Immediately interrupt again, and we wait for the second one. See that he runs a quick blade. I think I just kind of panic and I just immediately use dampen harm, assuming I do have the dot, but I actually don't. Shuri does go out. This is one of the weird ones, so I see that we do have to do a double here, but I just wait for square. Healer does go, it looks like a little early or late. They are potted. Shuri goes out again, but the boss is under 1,000,000 health, so at this point, this is really the time of commitment, so we are not going to go in again. Thankfully, the tank does understand that we are just moving backwards now. And boss is dead. That'll about wrap it up. It's good enough for the +2. If you did like this content, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.